Hello Bits and Bones, my name is Slady and welcome to my channel. As today's random spotlight, I would like to highlight a writer named Cassandra L. Thompson. I've read a couple of her short stories. You can find them on her Twitter page, which is what I mostly follow. They're very concise, they're spooky, she's a horror writer, it's great. I definitely recommend that you check her out if you like short horror. And just in general, if you follow her on Twitter, she has a lot of really relatable, funny posts, which is what I need right now for this video. I told myself that I wasn't going to film the first Facebook rant video and this one consecutively, but at the same time I just wanted to get it out of my life. So here we go. Previously, I spoke about Facebook trolls and how they get away with doing what they do. We looked at an example of misinformation and how people spreading it ignore their own bad behavior. They know better and yet expect to be exempt from judgment because they're an asshole and they know it, so everything should magically get ignored. As you can hopefully tell, I'm not for that. It's a mentality of a child being perpetuated by grown adults, and I spit that out of my life. Now, I'm going to be discussing a different post that I'd like to warn you may trigger you. The only reason I'm making this is because I think it's important to be aware that these sorts of posts are being shared around, and they should be stopped. Even though it's taxing on my mental health to address this level of toxicity. If you have a high sensitivity for racism, you should click away. It made me livid when I saw it, so I understand if this is not a topic that you can handle going through right now. I think I covered well enough in the last video how harmful misinformation gets spread and that we need to stop it, so just go watch that. And in the spirit of this disgusting post, I'm going to be drinking to control my tone. Not that I haven't already. You caught me. Does YouTube censor this? I don't. It's grape juice. Anyway, I'm not a rock of mental fortitude, but I am too mad about this to stay quiet. As I was scrolling through Facebook one day, I was assaulted with this. I'll give you a minute to read it and internalize it. I will not be keeping it on screen for the duration of the video. Now, as you may know, I come from a small town with an overwhelmingly white majority. Because of this, people of the generations before me, now in their 50-somethings, never had to address the problematic behavior or thoughts they have had on other races because they didn't have to interact with them. It was a non-factor in their daily lives. It was as easy as saying, I'm not racist, because they never had to actively prove it. Until now. Until the internet. And as you can see, their disconnect from other cultures has spawned an insidious vacuum on platforms like Facebook for the distribution of racist and problematic content. If you can't tell me what was wrong with that post, you are also part of that vacuum, and I urge you to continue watching this video while I dissect the harmful racist underlying message it has. Firstly, posts like this are uninformed and made to polarize issues that are not related. Drawing this parallel does absolutely nothing constructive. The only reason the comparison is even being mentioned is because George was a black man killed by a white man, and Cannon was a white boy killed by a black man. Race is involved. It always is. But one is a race issue, and the other isn't. Because George Floyd did not die of overdose while resisting arrest. He was killed, and his face is being used for a movement against systematic racism. Right off the bat, we need to address the words this post decides to use and the narrative they construct. George is a violent thug compared to this innocent boy, therefore implying the attention they deserve is not equal. It's painting a negative picture of George to heighten the narrative it wants of elevating Cannon's worth. It's also discreetly aligning George and the black man that killed Cannon with these hateful terms. But seriously, the wording is just so absolutely fucked. Do you think the people reposting this are considering for 1 second how ridiculous it is to say that George is being praised for dying? How disrespectful is that? And like he had any choice in the matters. Like it wasn't its own disgusting violent crime. And George just woke up one day and decided to go die for the cause. No, obviously not. Then we need to recognize Cannon Hanant's death as described as irrelevant. Who says it's irrelevant? Because to me, it sounds like the one who made this post is saying that. They feel that way. Nobody else is running around saying, wow, that kid is not worth talking about. No one is arguing Cannon's death isn't tragic. What good does it do to say Cannon got less attention than a dead black man other than to perpetuate an underlying message that one death deserves more recognition than the other because of their race and the race of their killer? The white superiority behind this post shines through when you're forced to confront this fact. If we're being entirely realistic, why should the media coverage of a random dead white boy come anywhere close to a death that's attached to a global movement? Unless, of course, you believe one race is more important than the other by right. This post is spinning a story to support racial dichotomy, and it is not okay. And the worst part is, when I confronted the person in my circle that reposted this, the response was, I'm not actually going to post the comment this time, I'm just going to paraphrase because I think it says a little bit too much in it for me to censor, and I don't want to go back and find it. Basically, the response that I got, unlike the Facebook troll I did in my first video, was, you know I'm not racist, I'm just sad about the boy dying. Although they did not perpetuate this post with an underlying knowledge of how bad it was, there was still no admittance of how bad it was when it had been addressed. And this is where people that were raised in places like my hometown's arguments completely fall apart. If you are not racist, then you should know better than to repost things that perpetuate a racist narrative. If anyone reposting this honestly cared about Cannon's death, there's no reason to bring George Floyd into it. Because again, they are not related unless you are trying to discredit the validation of the injustice against one race over another. It is not a competition unless you are racist. If anyone reposting this fucking image really wasn't racist and did want to acknowledge Cannon's tragedy, they'd be inclined to share links to support his family instead, or a post which actually reports on his murder. Not this extremely toxic, disgusting comparison. And the worst part is, after having a discussion about how wrong this image was, it hasn't been deleted. I don't understand how it hasn't been deleted off the platform, honestly. I don't know how they're not seeking it down and terminating it. You can't call yourself not racist when you literally perpetuate racism. There is no excuse. There is no just being in it to bring awareness to Cannon Hinot. When sharing this narrative that takes all focus away from the individual's deaths to paint a picture of racial worth. I made this video to let people like myself know these posts are real. People honestly don't see the problem in them because they're picking and choosing what part of the post counts rather than acknowledging its entirety. And we need to take every opportunity we can to shut down the continued spread of misinformation and racism and fucking everything else wrong in the world. Thank you, Wine. I'm still angry. Facebook users that repost content like this exempt themselves of responsibility because they didn't make the post originally. They're just passing it along, and that is not acceptable. We need to take accountability for the things we say, do, and spread on the internet and in our lives. I'm wrapping this video up now because I'm exhausted mentally. I hate that this post exists and that we've created a culture on Facebook that allows it to be distributed in the first place. Talk in the comments about literally anything you want. Your own racist family, your opinion on what Facebook has become. Maybe just send me cute stories to wash the shitty one out of my brain. As always, I appreciate you watching this video. Thank you. I would also like to thank my one and only patron, Rachel! If you would be interested in supporting me and any of the content that I make, I will be linking my Patreon in the description below. My name is Slady, and I will see you in the next video.